when people come in here, one of the many, many advanced ways that we look at them, our medical team, is we do heart rate variability. I just had a conversation with a guest that came in here. She's 77. She was 88 when she came in. And I said, well, you've been here 2 weeks. Go back and test yourself. She's down in her 50s now. So she's lost actually 25 or 30 years just in 14 days. And she'll be here another week or two with us. Now, why is that? It's the cortisol levels. So if you say, what's the number one way we age? It happens to be these wild cortisols that were put in your body a long, long time ago to actually make you be able to fight or flight, run away or fight for your life. Now, little to never do we ever have that need at this point, but your body doesn't know that. And when your brain gets a little thrown off, and you don't know how to process something, or you have a little stress, not the stress that your ancestors may have had with a lion or a bear chasing them, but you didn't like what somebody said to you, or your job isn't making you happy, or the date didn't go well. We amplify these things like a bear's chasing us. When that cortisol level shoots through the ceiling, what happens is it throws a total wrench. It completely slows down every other system in the body. It is so sloppy, it's amazing to me that your immune system doesn't work. So now you're more vulnerable for disease. This is why the core of our program here is to get your head together. Because if you want to fight aging, and if you want to fight disease and reverse disease, we got to get that under control. So the cortisol level is not running and making blood go to your arms and legs to run when you're not running. You're just afraid of something at this point. Another thing that you have to know about cortisol level is it actually eats up the neurological system in your body and the brains. Actually, the pathways that make the neurons move through your brain and get you to intelligently understand what you're hearing and experiencing and being able to process that happens to be this pathway is eaten away by high cortisol levels. Sugar balance too. One of the things that my wife used to say 35 years ago, and I incorrectly corrected her. I'll say that again. Incorrectly corrected her. She used to call diabetes type dementia type 3 diabetes. I used to say, you can't say that in front of these groups we're lecturing at. Guess what? She was absolutely right. I apologize to Anna Maria. I was completely wrong. That's what it's called now. Why? Because you don't have a way to process sugar in the brain. Now, let me make this overly simple for you. Talking about biohacking. If I wanted to eat a hole in your tooth, the best way I can do it is put sugar in. Your tooth is much, much stronger and harder than your brain. Now, can you imagine how easy it would be if you have high sugar in your brain to eat away the brain itself and the functionality of the brain, your ability to think and be conscious? Well, if you don't, you're not really thinking on your toes. You don't need biohacking. You need rehabilitation of the mental mental area of your body. Let's go to the next one here and talk about it. And I use technologies, by the way. I use Cocoon right next to our bed, and that puts me into a deeper sleep. And how I know that to be a scientific fact is when I'm not at home and I'm not using that, I should carry it with me. I don't sleep quite as deeply. I do sleep well. But the rare time I don't get sleep, like the other day I was on a lecture tour in Europe, and I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning to get on a plane. I was lecturing 12 o'clock in the afternoon in another country. Well, I didn't get enough sleep. And I could tell you that I wasn't doing as good a lecture and as articulate as I normally would be, just because my brain wasn't working the way it should. And I didn't feel terrific. Now I'm healthy, so I didn't feel horrible, but I certainly didn't feel the way Brian usually feels when I get a lot of sleep. So this isn't sexy, I said, but the number one reason that people live longer lives is they sleep well. All of these things factors we're talking about are not part of the problem. And there's other things, but this is something you've got to learn to do. And there's sleep studies now. There's rings called aura rings that basically tell you how your pattern of sleeping is. Do you get into a third level of sleep? These are all questions that you should have. Most of you don't even know there's a third level of sleep. And if you don't learn about sleep, you can never live a long life. No matter what you eat, no matter how much you exercise, no matter how hip you are and how many treatments or therapies or IVs you take. You got to get to the core. And the core is lifestyle, lifestyle, lifestyle. Lifestyle includes emotional attitude, sleep patterns, diet, exercise, and tribe, or your environment. If you look at all of those and balance those and get those strong, I assure you and I promise you, you'll have far less, if any, disease, and you'll live much longer. Not because we think so, because the science shows so, and we've proven it here clinically for all those decades.
Q&A.
Here we go. I think there's a real question. What are the best ways to regrow hair? Well, number one, you need the nutrients that allow hair to grow, allow skin to grow, nails to grow, bones to grow, tissue generally to grow. And that's biotin and silica. The best choice is an American choice on silica called BioSil by the liquid form. And if you're really interested in growing your hair as rapidly as you can, 15 drops in water or juice at least twice, if not 3 times a day. Number two, infrared technologies. If you go into very advanced, more high-end type of salons, they have little things that look like the equipment my mother would go into back in the 50s and the 40s, where they get their hair done and it would blow up and would puff up. But these little devices have infrared that actually open up the pores on your scalp and allow hair growth to happen. Now, wheatgrass juice is very, very fundamental for hair growth. We see people come here several a year. Visibly, we see bald or close to bald fuzz coming back in numbers of guests every year because of the wheatgrass consumption. The other thing I may say about hair loss, there are a handful of you that is completely genetic. Most of you, I'd say about 75, 80%, are prematurely balding or prematurely graying. The graying part, you didn't ask this question. Why I haven't grayed in my mid-70s is because I've been taking copious amounts of zinc for 45 years, 50 years now. And I have adequate amount of copper, so occasionally I do take a little bit of copper. These are the two nutrients that keep the hair color what it is. Now, if you get old enough, your hair will turn white. Not because we guess so, because it will happen. It may take 100 years, it may take 70 years, but you will eventually get white. Next one. Well, multivitamins are sort of a false way to get people to feel they're getting everything they need in one pill. I would say maybe 1% of food-based multivitamins on the market, 1% of all the supplements in the world on the marketplace are food-based, plant-based, organic supplements, may have a lot, I didn't say all, a lot of the nutrients you need. But contrary to popular belief, we individualize. So what you may need, and the average person always needs a little bit every day, another person may not need. You may need very large amounts of one thing and very little amounts of other, because through your food or through other methodologies, your body has adequate amounts of that. You may be processing some things through your cells, your digestive tract, elimination canal, better than other things. So multi is sort of a inexpensive way to think you're getting everything to pacify your mind, but does it really work in most cases? No. Any daily habits or practice you follow that you feel have the greatest impact on your health, clarity, and performance? Yes, moments with myself. So every day, usually early in the morning, before I get up and read, and I only take supplements and juice in the morning. I haven't eaten breakfast in 71 years. Not a good thing to do. Before intermittent fasting was popular, I've been doing it. And then I go 3 days a week and go lift heavy weights at a gym for several hours. And then the rest of the days it's aerobic exercise. And now high-speed walking has been what I've replaced other things with. When I'm traveling sometimes at a hotel, I'll do an elliptical machine or a treadmill. But that 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 7 minutes, with myself, calming myself, thinking, what am I going to do today? What's the important things I have to accomplish today? What's going to fulfill me the most? It's not what I need to do the most. Sometimes what I need to do will stress me and not fulfill me. What will fulfill me at the same point, things I need to do. And a lot of times that 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes I'm spending with myself, I figure out exactly how to do something I may not be happy to do in a way that would make me happy. If you just rush into things, we're sort of like punching bags, getting punched, boom, 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 boom. And I'm not saying I don't have a lot of that going on as the director of Hippocrates. But on the other hand, if you just think it out, boy, you get rid of a lot of mess in your life. And I think that prolongs life and reduces cortisol levels. So what do you recommend for balancing or reversing dizziness? Well, dizziness comes from several factors. It could be an inner ear infection or water in the ear. We've got to rule that in or rule it out. It could be that your blood pressure is very, very low. We've got to check that. And you don't do it one time and say, oh, it's low. You have to do that over a week or 2 weeks and say, oh, well, this is chronically low. And you have to remember, some people have live longer because they have lower blood pressure. So what's normal doesn't mean it's right. It's just normal is 120/80. But for instance, many people I know who've lived long, healthy lives have 90/60. But when they stand up, even if they're healthy as can be, they're going to get a little dizzy. The next thing that happens is a little bit more ominous. I've seen this more so in the last 35 years than I did in my 20 years before that. It's these heavy metal toxins that we have taken up, and I think plastics to some level at this point, where it just cross-circuits the brain function. And so with that, you have to be very, very astute. We use a very advanced genetic testing lab here, and from that, we can really glean, does she or does he have heavy metals, and what level do they have, and what are they? And this gets into the brain and may feel dizzy. So it's not an easy answer to give you. There's at least 3, there's more. I just don't want to labor over this. Reason people get dizzy, and we have to figure out what that is. So you need to be with somebody who is competent and capable of telling you what that is. What deficiencies do I have causing salt cravings every day? Lots of organic celery for sodium. Well, it doesn't mean you have a deficiency when you crave a substance that is almost like a crystalline drug. So over my lifetime, I consumed massive amounts in my youth of sugar and salt. And when you get into that habitual pattern of taking it, until you really get far away from that old lifestyle, it took me 2 or 3 years, let's be candid, to not crave salt and sugar. Because most of what I was brought up on, and many of you out there, wasn't food that had a taste. It was a taste of salt or sugar. And in the case of salt, it's not a deficiency mostly. Now, there are exceptions. If a person is a grand perspirer, if you sweat a lot, if a person's out in the sun working all of the time, celery juice and celery seeds may not be adequate enough. So I would take and eat them. The minerals that we use here, organic sodium. I don't want to get into a big scientific explanation, but sodium chloride, which is table salt, crystal salt, black salt, Hawaiian salt, all these fancy exotic organic names, is sodium chloride. That one is not great for you, but do we need sodium? You bet. You know how important sodium is in your body? It gives energy to every one of your cells, but more important than that, it's antiseptic for the lymphatic system. So those lymph glands, which filter, if you don't have adequate amounts of sodium, it doesn't clean those filters, and you can end up with lymphoma or clogged, best thing, you'd end up with a clogged lymph gland, which you don't want. So we do need that. So larger amounts of sodium from organic sodium in celery seeds, and then I would go as far as, it's inexpensive and very effective, taking a lot of the sodium from Eden Company, organic ionic sodium. EMF sensitivity, mistakes around Wi-Fi. Well, thank goodness this is something we've been acutely interested in and working on for the entire history that I've been with Hippocrates. You may want to see what I have around my neck. This has not come off for 11 years. And the one I had before that was several years before. Fortunately, when I was lecturing in Hamburg a long time ago, I met a physicist who was very much on top of this stuff. And he had worked with Russian physicists and put together a technology that's by far the most advanced in the world. And my wife, Anna Maria, and this physicist, German, put together what we call high pulse. You can get this from our shop here. So Hippocrates Health Institute, HHI pulse. And this acts like, it doesn't make it all disappear in the atmosphere. That's magic, not science. What it does is acts like a lightning rod. So all of us, like it or not, know it or not, are bathed in a sea of EMF, electromagnetic frequency. And your sister and hundreds of others I've dealt with have electromagnetic sensitivity, and it's now actually in medical journals as a problem, as a diagnosable disease. And so with that said, by wearing this, you will dramatically, if not totally, wipe out those problems. Also in your house, here on the campus, we brought in experts, and we have spent a lot of money. So the entire Hippocrates Institute is shielded with a virtual but real shield to protect us from Wi-Fi and 5G and all of these things that cause disease. What your sister's feeling, sensitivity, she continues to feel that, she'll end up with cancers, neurological problems, etc. The other thing is, at home you can buy a Wave Rider, WAVE. We have them here. That's what I have at my house. We have it in my office here at Hippocrates. The one I have next to my bed, which is also an EMF protector, but also does other things. I just spoke about it early on, where it actually puts me into a deeper sleep. They have cards for people who are anxious. They have cards for animals. And the animals actually are proof how effective this is. This is one of the top scientists in the world at the Max Planck Institute who developed this. Years ago, he created the Beamer. That's 20 years old. And you may want to look at that. That's called Cocoon. Very advanced technology. My latest book, Quantum Human, speaks about all of this and shows you how the real science of today is far away from what we're really doing to you, subjecting you to this day. Yeah. How long does one stay in the Parasite cleanse from Hippocrates? Should it be repeated a second time? Yes. So over the years, we have been so serious about parasites because when a parasite is draining your body of nutrition and employing the immune system to fight it rather than fight a disease or virus or bacteria, you don't want that to be. So you want to eliminate the parasites. Now, pretty much everyone has parasites on and off throughout their life. In America, 7 or 8 out of 10 children have pinworm. That's a number that's been standing since I was a little boy and hasn't changed. And we don't think about that because we have this elitist idea in the world that most of us live in that, no, this is something you get in third world countries and poor, impoverished people. I had an office in New York City. My partner was a medical doctor. This goes back 25, 30 years ago. I didn't find a resident in New York who didn't have a parasite. I'll repeat it again. I didn't find it. Why? Because you put 25 million people in a small area, they touch something, they go into the public bathroom, they rub their eye, it comes in. So we used to actually use a form of pharmaceutical medicine because we were so serious getting rid of it. And a parasite diagnostic center here in the United States developed an herbal component or concoction of 3 different herbs that work much better than it. It's called the Freedom Kit. So what we learned from parasitologists, people that I worked with over the decades, is that the first kit which you take until it's gone. You just take it as it's prescribed. Probably in 91% of the cases, wipe out the parasites. Problem is we have no way to diagnose the microscopic eggs of the parasite. So then we take one kit, we take off 30 days, then we take a second kit. Now you wipe out 99.5% of the parasite. It'd be very rare if you had an amoeba or some really strong strain of parasite, you'd be that 0.5%. But within the two kits and 1 month lapse of that between it, 99.5% of you will wipe it out in a more natural way than taking a drug or some halfway process. Look forward to visiting again. Good. We always want our guests to come back. 80% of the guests come back here. Some of them take it every 3 months, 4 months they come back, some every 5 years. But we have guests coming here constantly. We're filled now with alumni, and we love it because they sort of support the new people that come here. There's a lot of new people that come here too. And it's wonderful to see an emerging level of consciousness happening. It's been laborious for me to watch over the time I've done this because it's inching up step by step. At least we're talking about plant-based diets now with these quote experts, the cooked, processed plant-based diets. Doctors sort of have the microphone now. And so we're trying to edge you to realize that there's a radical difference between a cooked plant-based diet and an organic, raw, living, high-sprout, enzyme-rich diet. I can tell you myself, I was a vegan, felt terrific. Now I felt incredibly well. There's a big difference. Terrific is better than. At the maximum level of well-being is where I am in my mid-70s now. And so with that said, we welcome you to come back here and be with us anytime. So why Chinese medicine suggests that cooked food and warm water, how does it work on raw diets? This is an interesting story. Number one, I have massive respect for Chinese medicine. It's something I studied way back in the 70s. And you can't fault something that's been around for thousands of years. And what I have chosen to do in my life is not condemn anything that has benefit. So we have Chinese medicine here. We have Western medicine here. We limit it, of course. We have naturopathic medicine. One of my degrees are in that. We have homeopathic medicine. We have essential oil medicine here. We have, most important, energy medicine here. We have lifestyle medicine here. We created lifestyle medicine. Now the docs use that name. Back then in the 50s, we were the ones that came up with that name. Now, with all of that said, I think they did a remarkable job thousands of years ago, not knowing much. So they came out with a balance of yin and yang, one side, the other side, and I think it was remarkably instinctual what they did. But we didn't know about anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. We just assumed and instinctually moved forward to create the system of Chinese or Asian medicine. We've learned a lot in 2,000 or 3,000 years. So I choose to put all of that together, not to say that's bad or this is bad. What is the best of that? What have we learned? Now we're in 2025, as you and I are speaking. It's not 1700 or it's not 1200. And so with that said, we take the best, we cherry pick out of the best, but the theory that you need cooked food is completely out of the water. One loud, clear thing, get this through your minds and souls and hearts, is that every single creature on Earth, every species on Earth, except human beings, in nature, eat 100% raw diet. I'll repeat it so you don't miss this. We share the planet with 8 million known species. We probably have another 4 million we haven't identified yet. Every one of those species in their natural setting in nature eat 100% raw diet. Now you have an option to say, well, humans are right because we're smarter like the Bible says. I choose not to do that. Or we're the wrong ones. Maybe we're the one species out of millions and millions and millions that are doing the wrong thing. And I vote on that because we've been watching with 1 million people who have been through the programs. What happens when we put you on a raw, organic, living, enzyme-rich plant-based diet? And people like me who just don't age, and people come here and reverse disease and prevent disease and biohack, as we say. But it's not as easy as taking a pill or going to some biohack expert You have to change your attitude. You have to change your patterns. You have to give up things that you've been told by philosophical ideologists from thousands of years ago are great for you. Uh, I would choose to be with somebody who's on top of all of this stuff and picks the best of all, rather than somebody who says, dogmatically, this is the way to go. How to avoid hip replacement and grow cartilage? Well, exosomes are something we do here on the campus. And the book that I wrote with Dr. Levy last year, How to Live to 120, we did the deepest dive I ever did in my life, and he ever did, on stem cells. And we were all excited initially, thinking we were going to tell you how great stem cells were. And they are good and they can help. But we're probably in kindergarten on stem cells now. Not probably, that's where we are. Exosomes are probably in high school at this point. But exosomes take 500 of these stem cell activating agents, put them in your body, and they have a much bigger bang and a much better return on your effect. So you have to find somebody who's good at that, an expert in that. We do it here on the campus. That's number one. Number two, there are certain adjustments, but you can't go to the average person. We use the newest, latest technology that uses high density sound to adjust the neurological system of the bones on the spine without touching the person. And diagnostically, it's advanced, as well as therapeutically, it's advanced. And this kind of thing can actually really help by putting the blood flow and the neurological system back into place when it should, so it feeds the growth there. And although I will say generally bone on bone is impossible to correct, I've been made a liar right here on this campus 7 or 8 times, where I've seen people bone on bone regenerated just through the diet, just through the lifestyle. Now, the things I said earlier about growing hair would apply to this too. What grows cartilage, what grows bone, what grows skin, what grows hair is silica and biotin. I'd also throw in this strontium. I neglected to say that earlier. Strontium is a mineral. You need small amounts that bond together calcium and magnesium, making all of this process much easier and effective. So here we go. It was lovely to see you in the UK. There you are. So here I was over in England there. It was wonderful. We spent a nice Sunday afternoon in England, saw a lot of our friends there, alumni, and we presented Quantum Human. You may want to all get that book and look it up. Very soon it's going to come up on the organization we helped to create called The Real Truth About Health. You'll see Anna Maria's. We were out on the road, and we continue this whole year to be Extreme Measures, where she shows you how incredibly stupid it is. What we think is extreme is actually normal, and what we don't think is extreme is actually weird. And then I do Quantum Human to show you the science of today and the future and how it's very promising, and I'm optimistic. As soon as we get all the bad guys and the bad players out of the way, we're going to make people a lot happier, healthier, and live a lot longer and healthier lives. So now, George P., what a great name. I wish I had a name like P. I have Clement, what's that? Clement means inclement or clement, bad weather. Hiram, what do you recommend for a 15-year-old following identical happening? He was left with eyes, bruises, swollen forehead, left and right, okay. So I don't know what the IDENT happened. What is that? We don't know. So I would assume it's an accident you're speaking about. So the best thing to do is get him to cryo. Usually somewhere in the world today you can find cryo units. That's going to take away inflammation. Even if you have a bathtub and put ice in there, you can get him to get in there and put his head under it and bring it up, count to 30, bring it up, count to a minute, bring it down again, do that 10 or 15 times. And now if you have more advanced technology you're interested in, we have something called Comra here, which is Russian technology that works like a gem on us. We see bruises go away in a day that would normally be there 2 or 3 weeks, if not a month. And so there's lots of things you can do. Getting blood flow back to that area and making sure everything's good. And it's tough with a kid like that because it's hard to get him to understand he's got to do basic, simple things, and I understand. I have 4 kids and 8 grandkids, and I think we grow up somewhere in our 60s. Maybe. Not everyone. How to treat osteoporosis, that's easy. And should I take the andronic acid medication. That's not the worst thing in the world if you're inclined to do that. But more than that, it's exercise, 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 exercise. Let me put it this way. In the 22,000 people, mostly women I've worked with osteoporosis, nobody gets well without weightlifting or resistant exercise. And somebody's going to sell you a bill of goods and tell you that this pill or this shot's going to do it. You're not doing resistant exercise. You will not get well. There's very few times I'll ever say that. You just won't get well. Now, can we help, as I've said in the past, to build bone? Yes, I don't want to repeat that again. Can electromagnetic do it? The only reason that America allows electromagnetic therapy, other countries are civil and allow it for lots of different things. Here it's for fractures of the bone. That's exactly what this is. These light fractures in the bone is osteoporosis. And it's almost always long-term magnesium deficiency, lack of resistant exercise. It's not so much calcium as they tell you. Well, those rare cases, I'd say 5-6% that are calcium deficiencies, that's a very rare one. Only one out of 120 women have calcium deficiencies. 1 out of 225 men have calcium deficiencies. It's a rare one. And to do that, eat arugula or take an ionic form of calcium from a company like Eden. Enlarged prostate. Why does it happen? How to reverse it? It's a hormonal problem. And even healthy men have this happen. I know that I get up now at night and I go to the restroom one time. And it is testosterone and other hormones that cause it to happen. Now, mainstream medicine is usually doing the wrong thing. Sometimes they do the right thing. There's a new aquablation where they go into the penis itself and they have high pressure water that actually reams it out and cleans it. And I've referred 6 or 7 men to it, and it's 7, and 6 of the 7 had remarkable results. One didn't. But the truth of the matter is that there are things you can do. Now, taking ginseng is something I've been doing since I was a young man in my early 50s. And that's something I would strongly advise. I would also make sure sex is part of your recipe. When you have sex, you have less swollen prostate and less prostate cancers, etc. As women, ovarian cancer. We also know that heating the body up. So my routine is 365 days a year taking an infrared sauna, even if it's not infrared, in a normal Scandinavian sauna. Doing this can be incredibly helpful for this. And then drinking adequate amounts of fluid. Remember, 65% of you do not do that. And if you do drink it, you take weird stuff like alcohol and coffee and tea with caffeine in it and sodas and milkshakes, and that's going to cause a problem. And Harvard did a study 41 years ago now that hit it right. They said guys with the largest prostate problems, swelling or cancers, etc., have high lipids, high saturated fats, almost always animal fats. Eggs are the worst. There's a rare form of prostate swelling and furthermore cancer that only comes from egg consumption. It's a bacteria in eggs. That is meditation, prayer, contemplation, getting in a good relationship, having a job you love, forest bathing, walk in woods, that's the only way to do it. Cortisol levels are controlled by emotions more than anything else. Now, if you have yourself in tenuous situations where you're unhappy and on edge and always worried what's going to happen next, it's going to be almost impossible to do this. So a lot of people have to surrender their bad lifestyles. And that really is true. And I'd say the number one way cortisol levels are high is either a bad relationship or not having a relationship and longing for it, being lonely. Probably number 2, and close number 2 is work. 80% of people, when they're polled all over the world, say they hate their job. Now think about that. Where you spend most of your time, or you're resting to go back and do that job, 8 out of 10 people are saying they hate it, not they dislike it. Bad news. And then how about environments? So you're living in a major city with horns going and sirens going all day long. Pollution is there. Are you in a house that has natural setting, or do you have a lot of chemicals in the house? All of these things get cortisol levels going because it's this alert. Remember, it's a survival mechanism from your ancestral primal days. And it's not going to ever turn off. You just have to control it. Diverticular disease, be healed? Absolutely. This is the precursor to colitis, Crohn's disease. It's like irritable bowel sits into that same thing. So diverticular or diverticulosis, diverticulitis, that's what they're all called. It's an infection. There's either inverted pus pockets or exverted pus pockets. They go one of two ways. So it's really about getting on a really clean, raw diet. In a case like this, it may have to initially be blended and juiced because the roughage may inflame it, not make it worse, but inflame it so you feel uncomfortable. And then we were doing implants, anal implants with a high level probiotic that has all of the full spectrum, like Life Give probiotic, 2 capsules in a small amount of water, like an ounce of pure water or juice. Shake it up the honey before you go to bed at night. Taking raw aloe orally and also anally. And yes, wheatgrass implants for over many months, 3 to 4 days a week. Okay, regional pain syndrome. It's interesting. It's something sort of new in medicine. And it's where the nerves have been damaged in a specific region of your body. And when that happens, my God, it's very, very difficult. Usually it was traumatic problems. So a person may have had an injury they didn't know about, or they don't remember from their youth. And now when they're older, it manifests. So the electrical flow is not going through the nervous system. There may be inflammation in that particular area. Now, we do an enormously good job with that here in our energy medicine department. We have about 8 different technologies there, and that gets the connectivity of the nervous system and the blood flow to all do what they should be doing. Now, needless to say, you can't be eating pork chops and hot dogs and expect to get better. It's just not going to happen. So you have to clean up your diet, use these technologies, even acupuncture. We seem to be very effective. Now, we have an advanced acupuncturist here. So I'm not going to say every acupuncturist is going to be adequate. Sorry, I've been talking a lot today. So what I would strongly advise is don't give up and don't take medicines to deaden it. That's going to make you sick and even addicted to the pain medicines they give you. And they often call it fibromyalgia. I've never worked with a person that follows through with what we say that doesn't correct these things.
This will be the last one.
What's your opinion on how to cleanse from Epstein-Barr virus? Well, one of the things that we pioneered here at Hippocrates with 2 or 3 other docs around the world is we were doing silver IVs. You can't orally do this. And the IVs, when you put it in, eradicated the enormous level of chronic fatigue syndrome. That's what Epstein-Barr virus is, which is part of the same family that HIV is in, mononucleosis is in. It was a big kissing disease when I was a kid, and it was wiping it out almost 100% of the time. So that would be a protocol that we absolutely like. Now, this is all about your immune system. It's about giving a fair fight to your immune system. So when you have more viruses than the immune system soldiers can handle, they become a problem. Now they start to invade organ systems, etc. If we can beat the heck out of and kill most of those viruses, then what we do is have a fighting chance that those soldiers, the immune system soldiers, come up, beat up, and put into remission. Does anyone completely eradicate, including Brian Clement, all viruses and bacteria? No, we keep them under control with the immune system. So we are 10 times more bacteria than we are cells in our body. Remember that one. So we need healthy bacteria. All of us, even healthy people, have unhealthy bacteria. And there's a balance here that's necessary. So this is something I'll say loud and clear, I've never worked with a person with chronic fatigue or Epstein-Barr who doesn't correct it. It's a laborious thing. It takes longer than some forms of cancer. I can tell you that right now. So you have to be patient and focused. So till next time, you guys be well. Have a great summer. We'll be talking to you very soon. Let's keep your eyes open. And we look forward to see you somewhere in the world soon.